Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today we are looking at the N1 Starfighter. It is referred to as the Royal Naboo N1 Starfighter or the Naboo N1 Starfighter, either way, um, or just quite simply the N1. It is a single seat patrol craft developed by the Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps and used by the Royal Naboo Security Forces for duties such as defense patrol and escorting. The N-1 Starfighter was a sleek, single-pilot craft used by the Naboo and demonstrated the marriage of art and function present in Naboo technology. Buffed chromium finishes on the craft's forward surface glinted in the sun for flybys and parades and represented the royalty of the Naboo. Complementing the Royal Starship, the N-1's chromium stood in stark contrast to its overall yellow finish. The craft carried just two J-type engines, which rendered the Starfighter an agile craft, and Nubian Monarch C4 hyperdrive engine had a single onboard astromech droid, which was mounted on the top of the craft. It featured an autopilot system for shielding, along with offensive weaponry that consisted of two blaster cannons and an integrated proton torpedo launcher, with one double photon torpedo magazine that could carry 10 proton torpedoes. It could attain a maximum speed of 1,100 kilometers per hour and was approximately 11 meters in length. The ship's central rat tail acted as a power charger collector and received energy from onboard generators when it was not in use. The ship's two outer funnels served as heat sinks for the engines. In or in use since at least the days of the High Republic era. The N1 Starfighter was originally built by Naboo and was most notably used during the Trade Federation invasion of the planet. During the invasion, the pilots of Bravo Squadron flew the N1 during the final assault against the droid control ship Uton Pla. Young Anakin Skywalker fired a pair of torpedoes into its starboard main reactor, effectively destroying it from within. The later they later joined in celebration on the planet below, flying overhead Naboo's capital of Theed. A decade later, three N1s were used to escort Senator Padme Amidala to Coruscant in order to vote on the Military Creation Act. Their royal starship held a decoy senator, and Amidala flew in one of the starfighters. They landed without incident, but the bounty hunter Zam Wessel hit the ship shortly after, destroying it and killing the senator's double. One of the three N1s was also knocked off the landing platform by flying debris. The N1s remained in Naboo's service during the Clone Wars, with several being kept in Theed hangar during this time. During the war, Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano trained Amidala in starfighter combat, with Amidala flying an all-chrome N1. Okay, in later years, following the climatic battle of Endor, the N1 starfighters flew in celebration after the Galactic Empire's second Death Star was destroyed. Shortly thereafter, Imperial agents receive posthumous orders from Emperor Palpatine to commence the destruction of the Boo via weather manipulation as part of Operation Cinder. Rebel leader Leia Organa, ace pilot Shira Bey, and Naboo's own Queen Soorna flew three long-abandoned N1 starfighters in the Theed hangar into space to destroy the Imperial satellites that were causing the extreme weather conditions. The Mandalorian bounty hunter, Din Djarin, acquired a N1 starfighter, or a highly modified N1 starfighter, following the destruction of his previous ship, the Razor Crest. Djarin and the engineer, I should say, Peli Motto, constructed the ship in Hangar 3-5 in Mos Eisley on Tantuy. During the time of the Cold War, the N1 starfighter was in service of Jata security officer Lima Kai and was modified with seismic charges in place of the photon torpedoes. It was destroyed in a dogfight with Iden Verso. In 35 ABY, the N1 Starfighter was part of a fleet assembled by Lando Calrissian to assist the Resistance during the battle against the Sith external forces over the planet Exegol. The N1 Starfighter first appeared in the '99 movie Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, the first installment of the Star Wars prequel trilogy. A few practical models of the ship were built for the prequel trilogy. The N1 Starfighter was later added to the Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi as part of the celebration on Naboo in the ending montage of the DVD release. The N1 Starfighter was designed by artist Doug Chang, and it was one of his favorite designs. At the start of the design phase, the ship had the angular design aesthetic prevalent in the original trilogy. However, Chang decided that Naboo's ships should have an aquatic feel because Naboo had a lot of water. Chang, though, or thought that the ship would probably land on water, so he designed the ship to have a boat-like hull on the bottom and not have landing pads. He loved the idea of a really sleek boat form. Chang knew that George Lucas loved the F1 cars and F1 boats, and he founded the F1 cars lines to be striking. Chang decided to turn the look of an F1 boat into a ship, which started the evolution of the ship's design. Chang knew that the ship would need to be functionally practical and also have an elegant flavor that Lucas wanted. In the design, Chang turned the F1 boats' two pontoons into jet engines. Chang designed the engines with a really long spike to mirror a fish's tail spike in order to give the ship a fish like quality. Chang messaged all of the details of the fully complete. Let me say that over. Chang messaged all of the details to fully complete the ship. Chang wasn't sure that the ship would make it into the Phantom Menace because it had a risky design. The ship ultimately did make it into the film because it was iconic, simple to read, fresh, and the audience could tell it was, or what it was. Lucas liked the design and wanted to go further by giving the ship some bold color. During the production of The Phantom Menace, visual effects supervisor John Knoll and the film's crew ran into a problem because the N1 starfighters' tails went through the walls of the Theed hangar in order to fit into their stalls. During the production of the Star Wars The Clone Wars episode Blue Shadow Virus, the show's crew dealt with the same problem. Supervising director Dave Filoni consulted with Knoll, who confirmed they also had the problem while working on The Phantom Menace. The full-size N1 starfighter prop used by Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace was on display in Boston's Museum of Science as part of the Star Wars Where Science Meets Imagination exhibit in 2005 and remained on display in the museum's Blue Wing for several years afterward. Hanging above guests' heads with several large wires, it was ultimately taken down several years later, having accumulated large amounts of dust in the process. I'm very familiar with that with a lot of my Legos. Okay, so looking at the N1 Royal Starfighter here, for the D6 kind of the D6 role playing game here. What we have is we have a very nice looking starfighter. Um, and again, it is listed as 11 meters long. Has the crew of one with the astromech droid. Has 65 kilograms of cargo space, so roughly about 130 ish pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. Consumables, we do have a week's worth of consumables. Now, if you notice, the pilots in the movie were not wearing the full complete spacesuit, so that tells me that the cockpit here is probably your escape pod as well. So they are kind of protected in there. So, if you're saying you're going to be in there for a week, it's probably not going to be the most comfortable, but you still have that. It does have the hyperdrive of a 1X. It's using the astromech droid that you're putting in there, with up to 10 jumps worth of data being programmed into the astromech droid. It has a maneuverability of 2D, which is pretty on par. Space of an 8, so that's doing pretty good. That's a pretty standard space rating for most of our starfighters, and we are actually listing this as 1,050 kilometers an hour, not the 1,100 kilometers an hour that was noted in our write up. Has a hull of 2D, so it's kind of like on par with with what you're going to find on our TIE fighters later. It has a shield of 1D, so it's kind of an underpowered shield. It does kind of help. The whole thing is the N1 originally, if you go into some of the extra novels and all that stuff, it was Theed's or Naboo's kind of response to pirates attacking some of their shipments and stuff like that. That was really starting to put a strain, which was all really kind of engineered chaos. Um, and you can find out that Palpatine had been kind of orchestrating things for quite a while as a senator and all that, trying to get things in place so that way when he was more in position for things to really kick off, he could get um, some support from the Senate and all that. And in some of the expanded universe books, they really do explain some of that away. All right, so our sensor packet here, we have passive sensors that can go out about 2 kilometers. Our scan is 3.5 kilometers. Our search is 4 kilometers, and our focus is only about 200 meters. We do have our two laser cannons. They have a fire control of 2D, so it is a kind of standard fire control system. Has a damage of 5D, so it's doing pretty decent damage for an old ship, especially for its time. The photon torpedo magazine, because it's a double magazine here, it's 10 torpedoes, has a fire control of 2D, and does 10D damage. Um, I remember in some of the older books, originally they were saying that these were not so much of photon torpedoes, but kind of like a plasma torpedo. Um, the big thing with Naboo was it had a huge resource of plasma energy, and that's really what they were farming, and that's what drew the Trade Federation, if I can speak here correctly, really into Naboo. They were kind of the ones that were buying it and then selling it off or whatever. They were buying it at a bulk rate from Naboo and selling it off at a high value to planets that didn't have much in energy resources. So once again, and it's a funny thing how energy is always being brought up in different genres. The reason why, like in Transformers, you have energon cubes, it's because of an energy crisis. Um, Here in Star Wars, it's an energy buying and selling energy. So it is always a recurring theme in a lot of different genres because people need power in order to power their lives. So um, the ship is very iconic. And I at one point I did have a small micro galaxy set that did actually have the starfighters plugging in, so the tail would actually plug in, and it was meant to say, and I think they did explain it away way back when, that you would charge it in through the tail. It would have like some connectors or whatever, so it could charge up. And in some regards, I kind of felt like this was more or less like your original style electric starship. Um, So that was, I think, way before we were thinking that this was going to last for, you'd have enough consumables for about a week. Um, Being a more kind of flamboyant looking starfighter, it is very iconic. I'm not taking anything away from it, but the fact that in my mind I was thinking it was really meant as a fighter to quick go up, take care of the threat, and come back down, not really hanging out for a while. But then later on, when we did get episode three, or really it was episode two, I'm sorry, um, where they were flying to Coruscant from Naboo, um, it kind of changed things up a little bit. But it's science fiction. We can always change things up. We can always say that a little battery pack or whatever um, can take us whatever. I mean, it's our MacGuffins that do whatever they need to do, and we find that in so many different genres. Trying to explain things away, we just say, "Well, it's because of X, Y, Z," and that's it. But as an iconic ship that we have, a very beloved ship by very many people, um, it is a honor to bring this forward to you today. I hope you enjoy the series. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video.